Role number 37. I'm gonna elaborate how can we prevent our website from SQL injection to get ourselves away from the SQL injection. So there are different techniques that can be used to prevent SQL injection. Here, some of techniques are being given. So I'll elaborate one by one each of them. First one is input validation. Input validation is just like the peepholes that you keep in your doors. So it can be used to look on the other side of the door. Like as you see in the below picture given, that a person is looking through a peephole, and it is basically used to know who is looking at the door. And if that is an authorized person, you will allow him to come in. And if he's not an authorized person, he's going to harm you. He's going to do something bad to you. Then you won't allow him at all. So this is a real example regarding the input validation, which is the prevention of SQL injection. But if we talk about that, what input validation basically. So as the person was validating that the person who is outside the door and knocking at the door, he's authorized or not. Similarly, for SQL injection prevention, here in input validation, we confirm that the person who is signing in, who is giving some SQL query, he is giving some authorized SQL query or not, and it is determined by the input that is being given by the user. Now, how can we validate that? The input that is being given can be in the form of a username, and also it can be password, it can be Gmail. Now, here we have set some restriction that the username must be in the form of alphanumeric, that password must be in form of digits only, and if there is some Gmail given, then it should be in the form of the special format which is set for the Gmail account. So input validation is basically used to validate the person that he is actually authorized, and this very procedure, or this very technique, which is input validation, confirms that a person is authorized, and uh, he can successfully sign into the website. And if a person, no, the second thing that this technique is prohibiting, that if the person is not authorized, he's unauthorized, and he's a hacker, and he is giving some malicious SQL queries to get into the system, then this technique will disallow him, and he won't be able to crack our website. So in this way, we can prevent the SQL injection by using this first technique, input validation. Now let us move to the next technique, which is parameterized query input. So basically, parameterized query is showing that there will be some parameter fixed for each SQL query, and in shortly, we may say that the if any user or uh, any client is giving some input in form of SQL query, then any input that user gives will be automatically converted into quoted form, or automatically those quotes will be assigned to that query which is given by the user. Means simply, if we give some example, if a username is given by any user, an unauthorized user, and the username is for example uh, random user, and in password he gives some random password, and also he gives 1 = 1. Now actually 1 = 1 is true, and it should be cracked off. The website should be cracked off, but it will not be cracked off because the due to the parameterized query, this technique we have applied it to the website. Due to this whole query will be converted, or this string is basically the password that is being given by the user. It will be automatically converted into string, and this string will be quoted on the both sides. So the third type of technique which is being used for preventing the SQL injection is escaping user supplied input. Actually, in this technique, we are prohibiting the user to supply the input which user itself wants. Means where the user, or you may say that hacker wants to inject some SQL queries which he actually himself wants, that these queries should be executed, and he should be able to get access to the database. Actually, escaping user supplied input is preventing that user, or that you may say that hacker, that malicious user, that harmful user, to stop himself from accessing the database, because he's an unauthorized person. Fourth type of technique which is being used for preventing SQL injection is avoiding administrative privileges. In this, actually, you can say that each application that or each web application you use has a database, and each application has an account. So in this type of prevention technique, you actually do something to the whole system, that you design a database, you create an account, and in this type of technique, you actually give some certain or some limited statements or some limited information to that we may say that account. So this allowing the person from getting access to that database. This is another or fourth administrative privileges is used. So this is a technique that can disallow a person, disallow this hacker to get into the system. And the privilege word is being used here. Privilege basically means to restrict him to get access to the web server or a web data. So let us now move to the last technique which is used for prevention, and this is a basically a large technique or broadly used technique. It is a web application firewall, shortly known as WAF. This basically the web application firewall is basically the software which monitors the traffic which goes in and out of the server. Basically, the server is actually one thing. In SQL injection, the attacker's main aim is to access or control this web server and run some malicious queries and then finally access the database. So this WAF basically monitors the traffic which is coming into the web server. So this web application firewall will disallow that hacker to run or execute that malicious inputs or blocks himself. And it is basically, we may say, the barrier. And if I shortly say, web application software is basically just like a scanner, or you may say antivirus. That is basically you use a different type of viruses for your computer security. This is a type of antivirus which is used for the security of your web application, and it is used online for the security of your web application. And it acts as a barrier for your web application, and it protects you from any hacker or from any malicious user, that he can never get access to the database or to the web application. So this diagrams tell us the broad overview regarding the web application firewall, that how it works. So in between both of these client attacker and web application, there is the web application firewall which is acting as a secured which is actually maintaining the security of our application. For example, there are two types of user here. One is authorized user, which is known as client, and other one is attacker, which is the unauthorized user. Web application is actually used to filter out only the, and it actually confirms or admits the request which is sent to it by the authorized user, who will be the client. It will be considered as a common request, that client which is authorized user, it will send a request or he log into the system. The firewall will allow it, and it will be a common request for it. Probably he will be considered as the normal user, and he will get access to the web application, and this will be okay for that web application, because there is no security issue for that application use that client, because he's a normal user. But now at the other end, if we say that attacker is going to send a request to the web application, firstly this request will go to the web application firewall, which is known for the security of application. Simply as its data is not provided in the database of that website, therefore that web application firewall will simply rejects its request, and after forbidding, it won't forward its request to the web application and won't allow it uh, anytime to get access to the database of that website. So in this way, we can prevent, or we can in this way we can prevent from SQL injection. And this was the last technique that we were using.